Joins us former Governor Sarah Palin. Good evening, Governor. I guess the truth is that whether the president's at the White House tonight or Martha's Vineyard, the stock market still went down today. We still have jobless claims over 400,000. So where he is doesn't matter. But it doesn't send a sign to the American people. Does it matter sort of symbolically where he is?
It does matter where he is tonight, Greta, and I don't know why our president bothers even making promises at this point or spewing those platitudes. One in particular, he said he promised to not rest until every American who wanted a job got that job, and yet there he goes jetting off to tickle his toes in the sand of Martha's Vineyard and probably burying his head in the proverbial sand, ignoring the fact that 14 million Americans cannot find a job, that 40+ million Americans are relying on food stamps to make ends meet. You know, economies are crashing, markets are crashing. There's a lot of turmoil right now, and he just seems so extremely absent from the reality that the rest of us are facing in this country today, and that's illustrated by his desire and now his action to go on vacation again, this time for 10 days in a pretty elite Maka area where the rest of us are kind of shaking our heads saying, really, at this time, perception being reality in politics, why in the world would he do this?
You know, I'm not sure he understands how important the office of the president is to the American people. And it's not simply policies, but that we do look for him for inspiration to leadership, to any president of the United States, whether you're for him or against him. And I guess at these sort of perilous times when people worry about paying rent, worry about putting food on the table, that symbolically is we want to see our president leading us and really sort of digging in with us. That's what I think is the unfortunate message. I don't doubt he's working hard. Well, I may have trouble with his policies, but I wonder who's talking to him, who's giving him advice, because we need inspiration at this point, and this isn't it.
Well, we need empowerment of the individual, and I think his ideology will not allow him to be one to allow that empowerment of individuals and our small businesses and our families to make decisions on our own and to invest according to our own priorities so that the private sector can grow and thrive and jobs can be created. Now, his ideology is one of big centralized government that can plan an economy and make decisions for our businesses and for us as individuals. So I think that he is not the one to provide that inspiration and that empowerment that is so desperately needed today to get us out of this really chaotic situation that we're in. And we saw markets today react to that tumultuous chaos as they're forward-looking, these investors who are really taking money out of the market right now because of the uncertainty, and it's caused by President Obama's ideology that will not allow the private sector to do what it does best and stimulate the economy itself.
I'm not so sure as if in looking at it, I actually think the American people, whether he wants a centralized government or not, want an answer. And I think the more difficult thing is sort of the mystery of it all, saying, I have the answer, I've got something for you, you'll get it in 2 weeks. And I think that's what's so painful. These are very difficult times trying to sort of guess what the right answer is, because the economy is so fluid. There's so many variables involved. But to sort of, think like, it's like he doesn't, quote, feel the pain that President Bill Clinton did, if he goes off and lets people sort of just hang out there hoping when he comes back that he's got something.
And he makes another promise that he has a plan that this time he will actually present. We don't know if that's just going to be via another speech or if actually a written down plan that people can hold him accountable to. But Greta, what his jobs plan will be, I guarantee you, it will be based on this foundation. Spend more money, incur more debt, spend money that we do not have, so we'll have to borrow money from foreign countries like China or print more money so that we can spend more money. And it all has to do with government, his ideal that government is the answer, when it's proven in these last 2.5 years that government is not the answer. Too often it is the problem. And truly, he needs to allow the private sector to start stimulating the economy the way that America used to. And you know what that was based on? That stimulation of the economy was based on development of our natural resources and reward for work ethic. And we've gotten so far away from that in our the policies coming out of Washington that it's going to take a while to get this train back on the right track.
You know, when in February 2009, or February 2009, and the stimulus bill was put into effect, a lot of people opposed it, but I think that, you know, any good American wanted it to work, whether you're for it or against. You really wanted it to work. Now we're 2.5 years later, and if he comes back to the American people in 2 weeks and says, you know, we need to do another stimulus bill, I think it's going to be a harder sell to the American people. He's going to have to show, you know, trends, real progress with the last one. Otherwise, he really does need to go to Plan B, because the American people won't buy another stimulus unless there is, in recent history, there has been some, you know, strong evidence of success.
You know who's not going to buy this next stimulus package and believe that it's going to work will be the governors around the state. I was governor last time that he tried to tell us that this nearly $1 trillion stimulus package that we just had to have shoved down our throats was going to be the cure-all for our economic woes around the nation. And there were a lot of conservative governors, I was one of them, who vetoed part of those funds and said, no, there are fat strings attached to bigger centralized national government that would attach the states to big government, and we would be beholden to more rules, more regulations, more overreach of the federal government. And we knew that that wasn't going to be good for the 10th Amendment. It wouldn't be good for states' rights and our sovereignties. And yet the president and Congress insisted that it was going to be the answer. Well, it's proven to not be the answer. So now when he tries to do this again, and he will try upon his return from Martha's Vineyard, he will try another stimulus package, I am sure. I think it will be the governors in the states who rise up and say, no, not this time. You know, fool me once, and you know, you're not going to do it again.
How does a president, any president, we've had a uniter. President Bush said that he could unite. That didn't work too well. We've had this president who said that, you know, he can get people to talk on both sides. No matter what you think about the two different ideologies, unless both parties do sort of work together instead of sort of locking horns, there will never be success in Washington. Should we just abandon the thought that the two parties can ever work together in concert, or for instance, like, you know, what would you do something different? How could you get the two parties to work in concert for the common goal that sort of satisfies so many different factions?
Look at the movement that has risen up that we call the Tea Party movement, Greta, and let's use that as an example of nonpartisan, independent Americans with just a lot of common sense and a desire to see the economy put back on the right track. This Tea Party movement is a good model for Congress, believe it or not. If you get into a Tea Party rally and you start asking people, you know, how long have you been involved in your local or state or federal government, and for the most part, you're going to hear people say, I've never been involved in government before, and I'm not even registered in one party or another. I'm just an independent, and I just want people who are in these elected office to be held accountable and to listen to the will of the people and to make common sense decisions with our economy so that we don't become an insolvent, bankrupt country. Look at what is going on in the Tea Party movement and the rising up of the people's voice there. If Congress would embrace more of that independence, not that parochial and obsessive partisanship that we see in both machines, both sides of the aisle today, if they would embrace more of that movement, then no, our country will be better off, and that's how we're going to make some progress here.
You know, I see a lot of good, hardworking Americans who are in the Tea Party movement, and then, you know, from time to time I see things like, you know, today I wrote on Greta Wire a blog about what's going on within the Tea Party movement to Senator Orrin Hatch. I mean, he's getting attacked by a small portion of the Tea Party movement for not being Tea Party-ish enough, and it fundamentally goes around the balanced budget amendment, which is the mantra of the Tea Party movement. But if you do a little research, Senator Orrin Hatch, going back to 1979 in the U.S. Senate, was pushing the balanced budget amendment, yet some of these people in the Tea Party movement won't recognize it. They won't look at the facts, and they go after him. So it's like, even within the Tea Party movement, there is, you know, there's a disregard for the facts and an effort to be sort of disruptive, even within their group.
Well, and you'll find that within any venue, within any group, Greta, especially when it involves politics. But to your particular point about Senator Orrin Hatch, he is doing good in terms of trying to get a balanced budget, and he has been for the last couple of decades. And he's pushed hard for some fiscal reforms that we have got to see implemented. Otherwise, you know, crony capitalism is going to continue coming out of Washington, D.C., and we're going to continue on the wrong path, and we will be bankrupt. So people like Orrin Hatch, who now especially, he's rising up with quite aggressive talk about the balanced budget amendment and other things that he has seen for all these years need to be done. We need to be agreeing and embracing his idea and working with him to make sure that that happens, instead of shooing him away and shooing him out of a Tea Party movement, if you will, when he agrees with such a basic fundamental principle that we must see implemented, and that's just simply balancing the doggone federal budget.